Everything on? Yes, I do. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mini Sculpting Super Show Patreon Hangout for August. Just gonna get my little chat window up so that I can see anybody that's watching that might have questions. Want to join in the conversation? We have Antoine and Andrew. Oops, let me take it off of this mode so people can see what you guys are working
Hello, Antoine.
Switching chairs. Can't get comfortable in that one. So Antoine, you have your Swashfischler.
Yeah.
I love that name.
Numero 2. I had done a regular deckhand goblin with a fish, so I wanted a captain to go with him.
Awesome. And is this all bees putty?
Right now, yes. So
cool.
Some of the end details, I did the same thing with the other one. Like the small details at the end, I wasn't able to do in bees putty. It wasn't sticking enough. I might finish with green stuff.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, green stuff's great for finishing touches, especially when you do them poly clay.
Yeah. Right now, I have the two on camera.
Awesome.
So the one on the right is the original, and the one with the more green stuff. So
that looks fantastic, man.
Thank you.
What are you working on, Andrew?
Oh, I finally cracked and thought I'd do a bit of fan art.
Awesome.
It's a TV series from like the 1980s. English. It's called Red Dwarf.
Oh yeah.
And like seasons 1 through 3, I'm like kind of a big fan of. So I thought I'd do something like, because really no sort of collectibles exist for it. So I thought I'd do a little sculpt myself. So I've got something on my desk. So yeah, just an episode where you get a beehive haircut for some strange reason. Just means something to me.
Very cool. Well, I'm still working on my son's miniature. Haven't had a chance to work on it very much since the last stream, but I will be moving along with him because I have to make his crossbow for a video now. Because that's what that's what people voted on for the next Mini Sculpting Super Show sculpting topic. I'll be getting that done very soon. But I'm glad I have you guys here because I have a very specific topic I wanted to talk about. And I don't know if you guys are planning on doing anything for Sculpt Ember. It's a very fluid, open kind of thing. It's not as defined as like March of Robots and Inktober and all that stuff. And I think I'm kind of okay with that because it seems like it takes longer to do sculpts anyways, especially when you can't have infinite time for it. You're doing it as a side project. So yeah, I wanted to see if either of you guys are planning on doing anything, and I was going to share what I'm going to do.
Sure, Anton, you want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Oh no, sorry, you first.
I was just going to ask you, what's the usual goal? Like, I know, like Inktober, people try to do a sketch every day, but there's no way I can finish a miniature every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I did it last year, and it's a thing that was around, I was trying to kind of maybe take it and define it more for miniatures last year. And when I was doing that, how I kind of formatted, at least for myself and some other people were doing that, is you basically commit to a certain number of miniatures that you were going to try and achieve in that month. and try and finish it, even if it's just one. And then with the key of making sure you work on it, you sculpt every single day. So it's a little bit of a sort of like an Inktober, but instead of having a complete thing, it's more about practicing every day. Which I guess I'll just jump ahead then and say what I'm kind of like morphing into, or more clearly defining it as, for myself at least, is I'm going to treat it more like a mini 100 days with a bit of a goal tacked on. So the idea being I'm gonna sculpt every day. Even though I do this, I don't actually sculpt every day. Sometimes I do other things with my free time, but we make sculpting a priority and sculpt every day. Post about it. And my specific goal that I'm doing is, with that, I'm going to try and get as many sculpts done as possible. And I'm going to actually focus on doing ZBrush. I was about to say learning ZBrush, but I actually know how to do ZBrush. But I haven't done it in a while. And I think it's high time that I brush up on my skills and get some sculpts under my belt, some more sculpts. Ooh. So I'm going to finally get around to finishing my set of goblins that I kind of started back at Adepticon. I had that small set. Well, I've got several more that I want to do, and I'm planning on doing them all in ZBrush and just knocking them out.
For myself, I tend to work like, you know, on the normal sort of like day to day.
Yeah.
So about like 12 at night. So I'm trying to take a step back to be able to get some personal work done. So like I'm trying to stop at about like maybe like, you know, 7 or 9 o'clock, and then spend about 3 hours doing personal stuff. So that's going to be every day, just with this Red Dwarf stuff. But that's the goal for September for me, to just, you know, concentrate on your own thing as opposed to the work stuff.
Cool. Well, I got some people in the Goblins of Guy Gaxanor. Hey there. He says your pilots look smooth. And hey, Josh, welcome to the stream. That sounds good. And you know, especially for you, Andrew, who is doing this full time, yeah, I can see why you would want to maybe do it a little less intense and unwind. And
I think it's a point to prove to yourself that if you kind of limit the time that you've got in a day to do it, you don't sort of see the rest of the day as, well, this is my day to do it, and therefore it takes you up to 12. So I'm trying to test this, like, well, if I give myself 6 hours to do it, can I get it done?
yeah,
you know, and it might turn out to be like 5 days of rah, but then I might actually get a weekend off, you know, which is not something that's happening at the minute.
Awesome.
Have you tried 2018 yet?
I have noodled with it. I've been watching Havlich, is that his last name?
Yeah,
videos.
Yeah.
Yes, to brush up on the various new things. I've technically never used the widget. It's been almost a year since I've used ZBrush in any form, so that'll be fun. But I don't know. I do remember a lot of how to do it, so I've been brushing up a lot on the whole Sculptris Pro thing.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
Pretty awesome, because that's completely new to me.
I find that really helpful because you can just target tiny bits of the mesh and give it more geometry, but just like a tiny bit, so you don't have to remesh the entire thing. You could just sort of like add a load more geometry, like around the eyes or something, and the rest can be like completely low poly, but it'll make like a million polys around the eyes wherever you want to paint it. You know, however like small and fine the brush is. But yeah, that's a real help.
That'll be so amazing. One of my first pieces, there were so many times that I needed like just more polys in one spot, and it was all had to be, maybe it didn't. In my mind, it had to be one piece at the time, and there was some weird tricks that I was able to research and find to get more polys. Wow, it was But yeah, it's pretty. Seeing the Sculptors Pro has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've found there's a small limitation that I found so far, which is that if your mesh has subdivision levels, you can't use it. It won't work on anything with subdivision levels, so you have to freeze either low or higher before you go any further. So I tend to just like duplicate, make a higher version model, and then project back down onto the lower one later on. But I'm sure that a lot of people at home don't really want to see you listening to technicalities of ZBrush.
I'm excited. I plan on beginning my journey back into it, making all the little weapons I need for the characters, because I was really enjoying that towards the end of my stint, and I know it'll just give me a lot of chances to make sure I'm really familiar with the new widget and everything, with moving and everything, because I'm very familiar and pretty confident using ZModeler and that sort of thing.
The widget really helps. But if you press Y, it goes back to the old one, so it's always there if you want it.
It's cool. Yeah. Kind of wish I drew something up for this guy, because I just really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of playing it by ear. So I guess I'll talk about some of the fun things I've been doing. I've been painting my miniatures. Almost finished painting my my Van Star gang. Very happy with how they've turned out. And, gonna go play with some buddies soon, hopefully. It'll be really cool to have a painted gang. I haven't had a painted gang and painted probably anything since high school. I've had everything painted. That's very exciting. And then I started playing Dragon Rampant with my boys. They're loving it, and I'm loving it. If anybody hasn't heard of that, that's it's kind of like Warhammer Light. It's an Osprey publishing game. And it's designed so you can kind of, make your own army list. It's got some basic elements, and you kind of, if you're going to have goblins, well, you might use scouts for their archers rather than light missiles, because goblins have terrible archers, so you pick a weaker type of thing. There's different little rules and combinations you can put together. It's very, very neat. Plays super fast. Kind of get that same feeling as Warhammer. You don't need tons of models either if you don't want. So
is it skirmish?
So that's nice. You can play it that low, but you can play it skirmish technically, because the way it works is each model has a certain amount of strength points or like hit points.
Mm-hmm.
Each unit does, and you can represent that with models. So most units are 6 strength points or 12 strength points. So you can represent it with 12 models, and every time they lose a strength point, you just take a model off, or you can pretend they're hit points and make it a single model, and it really doesn't affect play either way.
Oh, okay.
So you can give yourself the perception that you're playing a rather large or a decent sized Warhammer battle, or you can make it more like a skirmish game. And the original version of the game was called Lion Rampant, which was a medieval historical game, but they made a fantasy one to had some more fantasy tropes to it. So I would highly recommend it. It's like $15 or $20 maybe, worth every penny. They do have a skirmish fantasy game Osprey does. It's called Kobolds and Cobblestones or something like that, and that's actually fantasy gang warfare. I haven't read the rules to that though, but I'm looking forward to playing that.
I read some other of Osprey's games, but I have not tried the Dragon Rampant yet, or Lion Rampant.
I love it.
Wondering.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been playing on. It suggests like a 4x4, and if you have a larger game, maybe a 6x4. But we've been playing on a 2x4. I think it is. Is it 2x4? Yeah, I think it's about 2x4 because we have some pre-made terrain boards that can figure together. It might be a touch small, but it works fine. It actually kind of makes the games go a little faster too. So.
Less time before engagement.
Yes. But I've just collected so many random miniatures over the years because I like the games, but I really like to just buy and collect things that I like the look of. So it's always great to have a game like this where I can basically make an army out of anything. Have fun with it.
Have you been getting any more interviews in for the Patreon?
Yes, I actually had there's 4 new people with us this month. I was actually hoping one of the new $5 would be able to make it tonight, so it doesn't look like it, but maybe they'll watch it later.
Okay.
One more back panel. This should be good. I'm going to click on you for a second, Andrew, so we can see what you're working on. So let me see if I can guess which guy this is.
It's fairly obscure, sorry.
Ah, the hologram. I haven't seen very many of them, but I used to see the show back in high school. My friends were really into it.
It's it's that guy.
I don't think I ever saw him with that hairdo though.
Yeah, in one episode he was being punished for being rude, so the computer that generated him gave him a ridiculous haircut that he didn't know he had on because he asked for a crew cut, and he ended up getting that. So he walks around with it for quite a while. It's one of those kind of things that stay with you. So I kind of like for myself, I had to add it in. I think it's just one of those tongue-in-cheek things that I think anyone who's a fan of like the show from the early things will probably get it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if not, bugger them. It doesn't matter.
It's for you.
Precisely, yeah. It's one of those things that you find yourself sculpting all the time, and then you do personal work, which, I mean, personally, I try to do personal work, which I like, but it's nothing that I actually really want to do. I just think I should have it on my portfolio, and I'm kind of scared of doing the stuff that I like because I don't really want to butcher it with not being able to sculpt well enough, to kind of make what I want. And then after, I think about a year of putting it off, I just doing it. I can't be bothered anymore.
Yeah.
I wasn't just gonna do something. be an actual genuine. Take a whole series in your own when you sculpt, I think.
Yeah. Let's see. Fabiano, hello. And Dan H asked what Red Dwarf is. You want to tell him?
It's an old crappy TV from Britain from the late 80s. That still goes on now. I think they still have they just did like a season. And they're all old men, but this is when they're back in the 20s, and it's like a cult comedy thing, you know.
Oh, Dan does though.
Okay, cool.
Oh yes, yes. Dan, to answer your question, yes, that is a Red Dwarf character. So yeah, more people know what Red Dwarf is.
Just weird.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people watched it, but as soon as you grow up and no anymore. I was like, oh yeah, was to but I think the just a lot of this stuff template, so this is not what I believe Rimmer actually looks like.
That's cool, Goblin. You got a job at a foundry that makes bronze art sculptures. You're fixing weld lines, and spots with carbide cutters. Whoa. Practically a full-time sculpting job. That's right. Man, that's cool. I always wanted to get to go to a bronze foundry. I had an art professor who did that, made that kind of sculptures and had relationships with that. Before I started miniatures, that's what I thought I might be trying to do.
It's fast in the water, it is.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the job, Goblin. That sounds awesome. Are you going to make any of your own bronze sculptures? Or are you sticking with miniatures too? I've also played a couple cool video games recently. I can't remember if I talked about this one, Moonlighter, last time, but I ended up beating that. That was fun. PC game. I think it's on a lot of the other consoles as well.
Never heard it. What type of game is it?
It's a top-down, kind of like the old Zelda, top-down adventure hack and slash game, and is pixel art, so it's kind of a retro style. But the gimmick with it is that you're actually running a shop, and you're actually moonlighting. Well, your shop is called the Moonlighter, but you're kind of moonlighting as an adventurer. You have to go into the dungeons to get loot that you can sell in your shop to people.
Oh, okay. A fair old twist.
Yeah, which is the funny thing is you would think the selling part gets old, but it's kind of fun, like running around your shop and making sure the shelves are stocked as people buy it, and then you have to actually get to your register to sell it, or they'll get bored and walk away and not buy it. And thieves come in there trying to steal stuff if you're not careful. It's a lot of fun. Hello, Andrew Brehot. said that right. And now I'm playing Volgar the Viking. I'm trying to had that for many years now and didn't think I was good enough to do it back then when I was first trying, but decided to take another stab at it. It is extremely difficult, but I am figuring it out. It's pretty rewarding. It's a side scroller action game platformer. Doesn't really have a story, and in some ways it's almost technically a puzzle game because the way it's designed, it's so flawlessly designed about like how you have to battle through it and the jumps you have to make that it really is almost like you just have to know the right way to do everything to go through, because it's like you can't adjust your jump as you jump or anything like that.
It's a death stun.
Yeah, so it's very precise. You really have to know what you're doing, and we learn through dying.
Like the most dramatic thing I've heard today.
Goblin has some stuff from college he'd like to cast in bronze, but it was pretty expensive. Yes, I didn't think about that. I guess it would be. It's a lot of heavy metal. And obviously the labor of doing all that. Alright, how am I gonna do this? Let's make some straps.
I remember John Brown on the No Mon School did a series of videos on the lost wax process. I bought them and I was watching them, but it's fantastically, just pretty interesting to watch someone go from like Chavant clay, like on a massive scale as well. Even those using those like little bricks, making like a massive sculpture, and then cutting them up and like I said, doing the lost wax process, like all the way through the foundry and seeing how it works.
Yeah.
That's something one of those things where you go like, oh, I really need to go and have a look at this, and like try and get something done in bronze, and but it just never comes around, But yeah, I find that stuff.
It's such a gorgeous way to see sculpture. It's so impressive.
That's so much permanence as well.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, so much permanence.
It's like I think as well because if you call yourself a sculptor.
Yeah.
It's like, and I've got a bronze. It's
Yes.
kind of like, so get away. I have sculpted a thing and it's in bronze, okay? So the rest of the miniatures are okay. I've tried saying I'm a sculptor and they go, what do you sculpt? It's like, like toys, like the minis for tables. It's like, oh yeah. So not a sculptor then. I'll have to start carrying around a bronze, I think.
Can't imagine how much it would cost for you to 3D print your wax master.
Custom wax. You can do it on that company Shapewares does that extreme detail material. They do it all in one piece, even though it's still like a printer which layers up. It's not like a resin printer. It uses resin filament. So I printed off my little Chaos Warrior and my big like sort of golem guy in that extreme detail stuff, and they did it all in one piece. Came out really well.
Cool.
But they do also do it in castable wax is one of the finishes you can get, but it is quite expensive. Like it'd be like about like $50 or something like that for like a 30 mil, like 32 mil.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and then considering like you've got to really get your cuts right. Because if it won't mold, then there's no point in the castable wax, really.
Yeah, good point. I didn't think about that.
So there's no sort of like trial and error. You got to really know what you're doing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like printers and stuff like that are becoming so much more affordable now. There's a fella I know who got a resin printer for like $500, and he gets really good results out of it.
I got my the unicorn I sculpted. It was 3D scanned and printed by Impact Miniature, a smaller version. I got the sample like 2 days ago,
Okay.
and the results are amazing. I have friends
really
who do
nice.
own 3D printing, but you always see the line. That stuff is good for terrain, maybe. But the resin printers, like, it's incredible the detail they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's a really nice piece as well, actually.
That's awesome. I heard Tom mention that he had a scanner. It's cool that it can actually take little miniatures and get something out of it.
Or even stuff you get from Shapeways or Euroforge. If you have the STL, Tom can print it for you. And I think the price are cheaper than Shapeways and Euroforge.
Awesome.
So if you want some sample of your goblins before going in full production, once you start, that might be a place to look for.
Can't believe I'm actually making progress on this thing. So funny, certain sculpts just feel like I can never get anywhere with them, but once I hit a certain point, it just starts to fall into place. I get to this point where I feel like, okay, it's time to make this part, it's time to make this part, and you just kind of go through the motions and have to worry about all the bits and pieces as much.
I find it's really fun when it gets like that.
Yes.
You
know where you're headed.
Yeah. Everything seems to work out. It's really
good. That's my favorite stage. It's always exciting to start a new one, but it's easy to get stuck in that little starting place where you're trying to figure out exactly where you're going with it.
Do you constantly constantly is a strong word. Do you usually like work without concept art?
No. I like to work with concept art. I like right now. I'm kind of figuring out this armor on the fly. I did some very limited reference research, but I'm not looking at it. And to be honest, I don't really remember it, what it looked like. I know it was vaguely segmented like this. But yeah, I like to have that all worked out on paper. I don't like concepting on my miniature.
I find myself whenever I hear that, the sculpting tips videos and things, and they always like concept, reference, you should always have reference. And I kind of I'm nodding along with it going, yeah, no, you should always have reference. Well, I'm 3 hours deep into something that I keep promising myself, I'll get some images in a bit, I'll just see how far I can get. It's always the same. You know what would have been good? Yeah, reference.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be detailed, like especially when I do my own, because I don't want to take the time, I would rather be spending the time on the sculpt than on a drawing that's not going to be used for some sort of production, or like in a rule book, or it's not something fancy. But even if there's just something rough, just so I know, oh, there's going to be chainmail here. Oh, I'm going to have some sort of leather pouch here, or the armor is going to be segmented. All that stuff. It's just so much easier when you have a sense of what's supposed to go where. Especially if you're working with putty, in my opinion. Yeah, before the internet, reference was a bear. actually don't have too many reference books anymore. I used to have quite a few. I used to collect a lot of those how to draw fantasy books and stuff like that in sci-fi because they had so many different takes, and now you can see what 100 different artists are doing on a given topic in a couple seconds.
I still think there has to be like a certain discipline when using reference though, simply because it's so, you know, attainable or obtainable.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you know, it's because it's there and you can just go through like a lot of them and you can spend a lot of time looking for the perfect one.
Yeah.
And you still need that kind of discipline to be able to say, I've got enough, let's start, you know, and let's really look at it. I mean, that's kind of my battle anyway.
Mm-hmm. I think that's another reason that I like to draw before I sculpt, because I can look for reference and it'll give me a sense of what I'm going for, and then I can quickly scratch down what it looks like. Whereas again, if I've got reference but I don't want to copy exactly on the miniature, well, you're still exploring, you're still taking the time. It just takes me a lot longer to do it on the miniature than paper. But I know that's not the case with everybody. I mean, Tree Manor, he just sculpts whatever is in his head on his figures, and they're all out of green stuff, so it's not to say you can't do it, but it's just a challenge for me.
So that's true, man. So
yeah. So Antoine, you're gonna make many more swashfishlers?
I don't know. Probably another one, but not right away. Gonna do more stuffies before.
Ooh.
And I started watching some anime earlier this week, and one of the characters that's super cartoony would fit in my sculpting style for the stuffy, so I might try to do a chibi.
Cool.
Hawk. It's the small pig in the Seven Deadly Sins. It's like a talking pig that helps in a tavern. So, all round.
Yes, I know. I was like, I've seen that. I've seen some of that show. I was trying to remember what character. I'm like, how did I not remember immediately? Because it's like one of the first characters you meet.
Yep.
That's a pretty fun show.
I think I'm gonna try
cool.
Sculpting that next. And for once, I would have reference pictures.
Goblin Guy Gexner has been using the Fiend Folio. Is that like a D&D Monsters Guide thing? Heard that before. Yeah, those things are great for any ideas. I've been meaning to go to there's a lot of these concept generators out there too, where it gives you text, kind of different combinations of, can give you a character race and class or different pieces of equipment you can customize them with, and just to help you generate and come up with interesting combinations. Obviously, that doesn't help you with reference. You have to go find reference, but. It's always a challenge for me to keep my characters thin. This guy needs to be not all ripply, bulky with muscles. Ooh, wow, an old first edition book. That's cool. I didn't discover D&D until second edition AD&D.
I'm still too frightened to play it.
I'm not a big role player myself, but I did have fun when I was younger. My kids love it. They're really into it. I told them, they asked me if I'd run them through. I'm like, I'm not really a role player. But I told them I would. It's got to be Warhammer Fantasy role play. Only play in the old world.
If you want to play something with your kid, go for something super violent. It's the right answer.
I'm not sure how much they'd really appreciate it though, because they're aware of Warhammer. They're not really steeped in the world or anything. So I don't know. We'll see. I should probably just run like Advanced Hero Quest or something, because you can play that as an RPG. And it's a little more board gaming, war gaming, which is my speed. Anybody in the chat has questions about sculpting or anything, just feel free to type in and try and answer. Are any of you in the chat thinking about doing Sculpt Ember, making a challenge for yourself to sculpt miniatures? Crickets.
I've been thinking about it since you brought the point earlier, and sculpting a miniature is already a challenge for me. So
That's a fantastic cop out. That's one of the best ones I've had.
I think I'll just continue doing what I do, trying to finish some in less than a month.
Yeah, I hear you. It's very doable to do one a month.
Like the chibi ones I do, they're faster to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the small pug took about 5 days. So
Cool.
I could do multiple of those maybe in a month.
Ooh, Andrew said he would love to, but he's in the middle of some sort of electronics project on his hobby space right now. Not you, Andrew. Andrew in the chat.
I do get
Or maybe you do have electronics. I don't know. You could. For all I know. Now, I figured it would be a good challenge to try and get more of these goblins done, since last Sculpt Ember is when I started my goblin the first one, and a lot of stuff ended up going on at that time, and it kind of petered out. So it'd be nice to. I'm feeling much more energized this time around. I'm ready to go. Oh, sweet. Goblin's got 5. He's working on. Dan H. will probably at least get started. I actually just got into painting them and then decided I wanted to make my own. But you found my channel. Awesome. Well, thanks for finding it. Hope it's helping you. It can be a challenge in the beginning. Okay, what are we doing here? Just need to make a leap. Let's throw this collar on. Haha, cool, yeah. Well, you will learn a lot about what makes Dan H in the chat. It's painting instead of sculpting at the moment because he's just getting started. But painting is a good way to learn about miniatures, especially if you're being mindful of it. What makes good miniature? It's something that we don't always think about when we are just sculpting is how it's going to be taken and used by the gamers themselves. We can get caught up in just making a cool sculpt at any cost, and you can see how it is to paint different details and what kind of will resolve in casts. Stuff like that. I have a long list of miniatures I'm going to try and get done in Sculpt Ember. We will see. It's pretty ambitious. Not going to say how many, but I'm hoping doing it all digitally will help, especially since a lot of them will kind of be conversions, because I can use the base body because they're all goblins. I think that will save me some time.
Are you going to be sculpting like air pose and then reposing from there, or are you just going to sculpt everything from scratch?
I plan on sculpting kind of a blank body for a male and a female. But as I go, if certain poses are already kind of close, maybe I'm just moving arms around or something, I might take the existing sculpt and just. I'm not planning on, so I'm not planning, it's going to be a bit of both. I'm not planning on, sculpting everything in a T-pose with their various costumes, then posing it up, things like that. I'm probably going to have the basic body, pose it, and then sculpt on different elements. So it'll be more like working with a dolly or an armor, a precast dolly armature type thing, rather than a full-on digital production kind of deal. What do you think of that, since you're a pro digital sculptor?
Someone who gets paid to do it. A pro is a bit of a strong word. I find that, yeah, I mean, that seems to be like what people tend to do. I'm still like a romanticist in the sense of like putting a ton of like spheres out for every muscle group. And then doing it, but you never have the time to do that, so yeah, for like T pose or A pose. But I don't know. I'll be honest with you, man. I'm working like that at the minute, working from A pose to repose, like masking and things once it's been put in the A pose. But I'm finding that the amount of masking and moving and masking and moving and then resculpting and moving that has to be done to get a good sort of dynamic pose. For me, it's just really worth moving, just sculpting the thing and
Just
then
doing what you want.
yeah, exactly. Like, just moving what I can and like just resculpting the other stuff,
Right.
Just yeah, like I find that if you do things like personally, I find that if I do things where I'm masking and moving, I become a slave to what I can do rather than putting the pose first. And the pose, like the dynamism and everything, and the really nice flow and line of action through it suffers tremendously because I end up, unbeknown to me, I end up going, yeah, that's about right. That's he's literally standing in that position. Whereas when I sculpt from the other end, it's always like, so what does he feel like? Does it feel like this? Does it really get that across? And that seems to go by the wayside. But that's just me, game artists can do this like all the time,
So you're more directly sculpting them into the pose rather than having like a stick figure that you're grabbing and moving and shifting.
Well, for like I said, I have like 2 day jobs. One day job demands that I do a T-pose and then a pose from the T-pose. So I have to deliver both. So I have to do that. But like the other one that I do is just make it. And when I make it, I find that like the dynamic sculpts always come from just making it straight ahead asymmetrically. Just sculpting where I can, trying to keep it as close to sculpture as I can. Trying not to use symmetry all the time, and breaking up the lines and everything like that by just messing things around.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll find that's where I need to be because I don't have to do a T-pose or anything. And I do remember when I worked previously, it was I always felt much more comfortable and natural when I would just sculpt rather than kind of take the more engineering path that is what a T-pose and all that lends itself to.
It feels more fun for me.
Yeah.
It feels like
you just get to the point, you just do it.
I'm a sculptor. I'm sculpting. This is what's happening right now. Whereas a T-pose is always like, so what do I do next? Okay, so I should be doing this next, then this next, and it kind of kicks out of that. I've got something in my head. I'm going to try and make that.
That's a good point.
There's always opportunities to make this stuff harder and more difficult for yourself. So I think take the ones which make it fun as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot do bums for the life of me. Serious. I look like it for my wife when she sees my screen when I'm trying to get reference on bottoms.
Just put a cape on everything. Capes and loincloths.
Yeah, I
have to admit, I not necessarily for bums, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know what something doesn't look right in the crotch area. I'll just have a tabard hanging down the middle, just something to go there.
I think that's the strange part. Like, I'm very aware that I'm spending a lot of time sculpting around his groin and his bum. And it's like anyone watching it be thinking, you like that bit, do you? You want that to be super accurate, do you? It's just like, no, I don't get reference for it. So I don't know why it doesn't look right.
Goblin's been harvesting big corks from jars and tag sales in thrift stores. Yeah, you always give him some advice for what you can use for your armature bases and stuff. Yeah, it's a good place. Corks they're pretty cheap. You can get them in most hardware stores as well. But yeah, if you can just find them, get them for free, it's even better. Oops. Just kind of squish this a little too much. Trying to make like a collar thing, make it look a little bit more interesting. But I actually made an actual collar and sew it like an actual folded over piece of material rather than put on a nice blob that I could form the shape out of, so there's kind of a void underneath, so it collapses very easily.
I always envy that with traditional sculpture, that you can just, you know, make the clothes and wrap them on.
Yeah.
You can fold it over and stuff.
Yeah, a little more. It's funny. Like there's a lot of time saving with digital, but in some ways you have to be a lot more hands-on to make it be and do what it is. That was the biggest thing I noticed when I did it before. You need a lot of specific tools too, whereas I can like use one tool, do a bunch of different things. But you get used to it. To answer Dan's question about the wood block, one of the biggest reasons that I mean, I love it for all my sculpts and stuff. One of the biggest reasons I started doing it is when I first started sculpting, I used putty, and there were a couple times that I found that I needed or wanted to pop my miniature off before it was totally done. And then whenever so when I had cork and I did that, I would stick it back on the cork, and I couldn't get the guy to stick back on, so I put more putty on his feet, stick it in there. But with the sculpting stand, clamp stand, the wooden block, you just tighten it back down, and they're in there. So I don't really take them off anymore, but it is nice to have it nice and secure. And you can do other things. You can, well, I guess you can do a lot with the cork too. It's all preference. You know, what am I making? I'm making a dark elf. I'm not sure what his class is. It's my son's D&D character. Some dark elf character that he came up with. I'm sculpting miniature for all my children. I've done miniatures for 2 of my 3 children. This is the last one. This will probably be the hardest because he's the most opinionated and critical.
Your son is.
Yes. When he was very young, he would come by and just start critiquing things all the time.
That's fantastic.
I'm pretty sure I even one time said, well, you're so good. If you're so sure, why don't you make it yourself? He's been pretty good with this one. We'll see it as I get farther, though, and it potentially breaks from what he was in his mind's eye, if that holds up or not.
He's going to start sucking his teeth and go, ooh, yeah, no.
All right. Well, it is 10 o'clock. Take any last minute questions, then we're going to sign off for the month of August. Sweet. Look how that turned out. Okay, it looks like nobody has any more questions. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining the stream and watching and asking all your great questions, comments. Nice talking to you too, Dan and Goblin and everybody else. And thank you for Antoine and Andrew for supporting the show and joining me on the Hangout.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for hosting.
Yes. Excited for next time, guys. And I will be posting more about what I'm doing for Sculpt Ember in a few more days. So, all right. Until next time, everybody, keep sculpting.